stream here on Sunday. Welcome to everybody who is watching and just coming on. We just started live stream, so if you're joining now and you're like, what's going on? You came in literally right at the beginning. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to hang out with everybody. I'm Jesse, I'm your tea guy. If you've never watched a tea stream of mine, basically I drink tea, we hang out. If you have tea and you are in a position, both physically and mentally, that you can make some tea, I would make some tea. That's my suggestion. Then again, I'm the tea guy, so I'm biased. So, welcome, welcome. Def Notsman says, how are you doing? Doing great. Marilla says hello. OJ Hire says, hello peeps, how you doing? Need that yak? We got the yak meat from like a year ago. If any of you guys saw my yak meat video, I still have not finished my yak meat. Welcome everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's make some tea. I'm gonna go and get my stuff ready. For those of you who are new to this style of tea making, this is called Gung tea. It's the way they make tea all over different parts of China. I lived in China for 9 years, and I spent like 3.5, 4 months there this year. So I'm kind of back and forth between China and the States. Very, very cool. Somebody's saying they had Japanese oolong. That's interesting. That's kind of new. How do you like the Japanese oolong? Oolong, generally, I thought it was only made in China, but I guess some Japanese tea producers are starting to experiment with the different processing styles, which is a cool thing. Welcome, welcome. Hello, 2019 Lao Mala show drinking the Lao Mala pour. Welcome, welcome. Good choice of drink for the afternoon. Somebody lost in the heather says, what type of tea should I make? You should make whatever you'd like. I got all sorts of stuff here. I'm going to be trying a bunch of these samples. So I have all sorts of tea samples that I get sent all the time, and you know, it's actually kind of nice to have a little bit of a chance to just sit down and try the samples, see if any of these kind of piques my interest here. I'll try some of this. This is the Huang Maofeng, yellow Maofeng, which I believe is a green tea and not a yellow tea, but we'll find out. Greetings everybody. I got Sister's Eyes Golden Sheng and pot currently. Great. How do you like the everyday Golden Sheng? Or do you have the fancy one? We have two Golden Sheng pours. We have a fancy one and an everyday one. They're both really good, but it smells good. Whatever it is. Yeah, I wonder if this is a yellow tea. It could be a yellow tea. It kind of looks like a yellow tea. I would check up the classification of Huang Maofeng on my phone, but I'm using my phone to live stream. So, by the way, if you see me answering questions that are not on your stream, I have a TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube all running at the same time. So I got 3 different phones up here. Questions, you get charged for the tea subscription every month, or is it done another way? It's done quarterly. So you sign up, if you joined now, you would get this box, and then you'd get the next box February. We have a launch month, so all throughout February, depending on the market you are, it'll be coming out sometime around then. We always aim for the 1st, but with global trade being as chaotic as it is now, I just can't promise exact dates anymore, because, you know, one time it'll go through customs, and one day the other it'll take a week. So hey, there, Christine, I gotta give you, yeah, there we go, give you a heart. But we're sold out of our subscription in many markets because it sold really, really well over the holidays, which is great. So if you're thinking of joining the tea club in February, jump on it, because you know we're really, the subscribers are really what makes this whole thing work, and it allows us to get you guys really good tea. So here we are. This is the Huang Maofeng, the yellow Maofeng. Maofeng is a type of varietal that's usually done as a green tea. I'm gonna drink this and I'll figure out whether it's a yellow tea or a green tea by the taste. Lots of great questions over here. Good evening from Stephen Aylin. Yesterday, me and her fiance went to the tea house in New York and tried loose leaf tea for the first time. She tried Dragon Well and Ida's in show pour. Thanks for the inspiration. Glad to hear people are trying out tea. You know, the cool thing about tea is that, you know, it really is such a different experience having like the really good tea in person, especially if you can go to a tea house or anything like that, even better. It's really just shocking, like how much better the real tea is than the stuff you can get in a grocery store. So cheers, everybody. We're gonna make this. So with a green tea, I would not do a wash. For those of you who are new, this is the Gongfu tea. This is called the Gaiwan, which means lidded cup. This is the tea maker. I put the tea and the water in here, and then you can see I kind of drain through this hole that I create into the pitcher. The pitcher is the real secret of making the tea well, because in a big Western style teapot, you'll have the leaves at the bottom kind of covered in water the whole time, just steeping. Not only is it getting overly bitter, it's also wasting all the tea energy. Like the tea leaves don't have infinite, steeping power. That's really good. I like it. We'll see if it's a green tea or a yellow though. I'm not 100% sure actually. So cheers everybody. Take a look at our Huang Mao Feng over here. Question, so there are no microplastics. Yeah, that's, another side benefit of the fact that like good tea, it's leaves and that's it. So like, there's really not even any packaging. It's just like, I have a bag to get it to you, or I have like whatever, a box with the tea cake in it. But like, it's like, you don't need to worry about what the tea bag is made of or anything like that. It's just pure tea. Cheers. I think that is a yellow tea. It's very good. Nice and sweet. The yellow almost has a little bit more juiciness in there. Cheers. Questions over here. Please, we want the ice jade pot back. I know, we're getting more of the ice jade pots. Believe me, we underestimated how many ice jade pots we would need in order for the holiday season. Also, I bought those during like the worst part of the trade war, when I was just kind of not optimistic about everything. So I was like, oh, let's not buy too many just in case it goes badly. Cheers though. And welcome if you're new, a new watcher, a new listener. I'm Jesse, I'm your tea guy. I lived in China for 9 years. I know a bunch of tea farmers, tea shop owners, and basically, I was a comedian in China for all the time I was there. I did professional Chinese comedy. I apprenticed to a master comedian in Beijing. I wrote on Chinese TV shows. I was a cast member and a writer on like a Chinese knockoff version of SNL. Every week we had a celebrity guest come on and we had to write them sketches and put them up in 1 week. And we filmed it live, even though it was China, so it wasn't aired live. But it was a lot of fun. And tea while I was in China was my hobby. And then during COVID, I got stuck in the United States and I couldn't go back to China. And so all my comedy career just kind of blew up. Cheers. And so comedy career kind of was put on hold during the entirety of COVID, trying to figure out what worked. And I was drinking tea every day and I'm like, I should make some tea videos. And so now fast forward almost 5 years, I've made the tea video pretty much every day for the last, 5 years basically. And now I live in this crazy world where people watch me drink tea on the internet. So welcome. If I missed, okay, we have a question over here from Let's Study Together. I'm from India. What do you think about us? As Indians in general or tea? I got to go to India once. I went to Bangalore and Mumbai. And I spent 3 days in Bangalore and 3 days in Mumbai. Although in Bangalore, I really was only in Bangalore for 1 day. I went to this, I led a improv comedy workshop for a American company and their Indian headquarters. And so they basically paid for me to go to India for a week. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go to any of the tea producing areas in India, so that's still on my list. One day, I want to find a way to get up to the north where they have all the different tea areas, and just just give them all a try. But I'm not a real expert in the Indian tea. And Indian tea in general, I think there's a challenge the Indian tea market has that the Chinese market does not, which is in India, all of the tea was basically planted by the colonialists for the purpose of export. And so the Indian, domestic tea market, Indian people wound up making tea with the lower quality tea that was left over after the export. And so they started adding spices and all these other things into it. And chai tea is now really tasty. It's very spicy, it's very good. But that sort of clean, crisp, high-end tea, one, not much of it was produced at all, and two, what was produced was all exported. So whereas in China, there's a domestic Chinese market that's willing to pay a lot of money for really good tea. So there's a lot of like a very strong mid and high range tea market in China that is supported by Chinese people. And then I kind of like the secret of all the stuff I do here on the tea channel is I just go into their market and buy tea that was not meant to be exported. Because in China, it's the opposite. They export the bad tea and they sell the good tea inside of China to the people who are really excited about tea. And so the trick to getting really good tea is you need to find vendors that were not planning on selling on Amazon, that were not planning on selling to Westerners, because once people make the plan that like their business model is going to be to sell to the West, they no longer need to worry about tea quality because Westerners in general don't know good tea quality. It's a very opaque market. If you buy it on Amazon, you don't like it and don't come back, no one's ever going to be able to track down somebody that they didn't get a good tea from Amazon or whatever. So like it is a very different market. But I've heard recently there's kind of more of a growing market within India for local Indian people supporting the high-end tea, and that's really cool because that's the sort of thing in the long term that's going to make like a really strong, vibrant tea market. I think as much as I would be glad to get some of the tea myself outside of India, like within China, the reason the Chinese tea is so good is because of the Chinese domestic market moving everything up. People asking, what am I drinking today? I'm drinking this Huang Mao Feng. It's a sample. Where's the sample bag? No, that's another one. Dude, I have so many samples around here. Yeah, Huang Mao Feng. So this is yellow Mao Feng. I believe it's a yellow tea. Tastes like a yellow tea. And it's from Yunnan province. This is really good because I'm always looking for tea that have the that are grown to the EU specifications, and this tea is grown to the EU specifications for pesticides and stuff like that. So in the future, maybe next year, I'm actually curious with them. It's very sweet. It has a little bit of a more like kind of funky depth to it than a normal green tea would. Also, although it's a little bit tannic. It's a little bit astringent, kind of dry mouth, tannic feeling, which makes sense considering the price. The price is not super high. But for that price, I think that's acceptable. The sort of like kind of dry mouth, astringent feel that sometimes you get from a raw pu'er or whatever. Like, you know, some people like that flavor, some don't. I would worry this would be not as good if you over steeped it too long. Which actually, maybe that's the next test, because I'm always trying to figure out how to do these. When I test the teas, I test them not only the way I would make them. I'm like, what if somebody was new to tea and they just like poured a bunch of water in there and let it sit for 3 to 5 minutes, which is what people think of if they've never had any like high quality tea. This stuff will steep in 20 seconds, but what if they don't know? Or what if they don't read the steeping instructions I put on the back of the packaging and everything like that? Like, will it be horrible? And a way to try to grade teas is not necessarily even grading how good it is when it's made perfectly. It's like, how bad is it when it's made horribly? Because if it's still pretty good when it's made horribly, that means the tea quality is very high. But if it's only good when you make it perfectly, then, you know, that might be good for me because I could get away with buying a cheaper tea and make it well, but it's not really a great product for you guys. So cheers. I apologize if I missed your questions. Let's get to some of the questions. Cheers. Can you speak some Chinese? 当然可以。如果有说中文的朋友，你也可以用汉字写。我最近就没有做这么多的中文直播，但是如果你要了解我的中国的喜剧的之路，和我在中国的生活的时候，你可以看我的书。我2月要出版的书叫《This Was Funnier in China》。So if you want to know about all the stories of my time in China as a comedian, I'm coming out with a book in February. I'm also going to be doing a tour of, I'm going to be doing shows in LA, Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., New York, probably Boston as well, and then possibly Chicago, possibly San Francisco, possibly Austin. So, 但是这个书是英文的. The book is in English. But I was trying to think of like, you know, what am I going to talk about? I hear it. It's flipped, although it's the camera's fault. Oh, I'm sorry. It's called This Was Funnier in China. You can look it up. You can pre-order it now. I actually spent all of Thursday and Friday in the recording studio recording the audiobook. And on Monday, I have to do another audiobook session. By the end of Monday, that'll be 18 hours in the recording booth. And hopefully that will be enough to actually get the book read. If not, then I'm going to be back on Tuesday. Very, very cool. Great questions. Questions from Thor. Jesse, are you planning on bringing in some unglazed Yixing teapots? Yes, that is something that's on my list of things to do in the next year. I'm kind of in between two different strategies. Let me show you one of them. I have one of the pots here. Actually, kind of at both of the pots to show you the two strategies. Where's my other teapot? Well, whatever. I don't want to hold up the live stream, but so one possibility is my friend Dui Dui, who makes our pots, has purple clay versions of his pots, and so we could work with Dui Dui to make these. There's a couple different options in terms of how we can make them if we want them to go from like full handmade to partially handmade to hiring the master potters to make them to hiring the disciples of the master potters. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made. But one of the reasons I don't sell purple clay pots is that it's really difficult to know what you're buying. Not only for you guys as like customers, but like for me as a tea guy, like you need to have some real expertise, some real connections, and also a lot of knowledge in order to make sure you know what you're getting. And this is one option. The second option is going directly to either Yixing or to another place that has the clay, buying the clay, hiring the potters directly, and then that way I bought the clay, I hired the potters, we have video of the whole process. It may not necessarily be like the most rare clay in the entire country, but you would be able to at least know, like I could say when I tell you what the clay is, when I tell you how the pot was made, I would know that every step of the way it's been done. So that's a possibility for my maybe my spring trip of going to one of the clay pits and working with the master potters to make some of the pots. And then only then, when I know what I'm actually putting up on the shop, would you see any purple clay pots on the site. Or you can get the clay pots that I have on now. Dui Dui said are made with purple clay, but it's not from a rare area. And those are semi-handmade. The bodies are done on like kind of not a machine, but it's like kind of like a wheel, I suppose, but like it's kind of done with a form, and then you can form the body relatively quickly. And then we hire like real pot makers to do the mouth, the filter, and the handle, and the lid. So those things are done in order to keep the price a little bit more reasonable. And obviously we're not using any famous clay or anything like that, but it's still quite good. Cheers. But yeah, I will let you guys know if there's any purple clay pots out there. This is also one of the reasons I get like private messages a bunch of times from people saying, hey, I want to buy a purple clay pot, but it's super confusing and there's all these different clay types and I don't know if it's real. And I'm like, yep, you are correct. It is really confusing. And so unfortunately I can't really answer those because my answer is like, I would have to do like legit research to know if that pot is real or what the pot is made of. And I can't do that research for everybody who private messages me asking about it to buy somebody else's teapot. So I'd rather do that research all at once by actually buying the clay and following the process through. Cheers. Techno Squatch says, don't forget to overseed. Good point. This already, I know enough about it, about how it tastes normally. The next steep I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna leave this in here. I'm gonna oversteep it quite a lot, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I'll even put the lid on to add some more heat. By the way, if you ever have a tea that like a dark chaud or a rock tea or something where you want the most heat into there, cover up the gaiwan. The only downside is if you do it like I did here, you need to cover it a little bit lower. Otherwise, when you cover it, the whole thing is going to get super hot and it's going to be hard to use your fingers. So, show us the tea color, please. Here you go. It's our yellow tea, Huang Mao Feng. Yellow Mao Feng. Very, very cool. Let's do a couple more questions. Welcome, welcome. By the way, if you're new to the channel, I'm Jesse. I'm your tea guy. I lived in China 9 years. I know a lot of Chinese tea farmers and small tea shop owners in China. I spend 3 to 4 months a year in China finding really good teas, and then I bring them and put them on my site, and I make videos about it. And I just want to thank you all for your support, because you guys watching this sort of stuff and leaving comments, and some people even going to the shop and getting gifts from the shop allows me to just like do tea stuff all the time, which it's a good deal. I am very happy to make a video for you guys and do some live streams and work really hard on the media side so you guys can understand the tea culture in exchange for getting to do tea stuff all the time, which is great. Great questions over here. It says, that dude on TikTok says, don't drink tea myself, but love the videos, always educational, interesting. Try some of the tea, and I appreciate it though. I hope it's an interesting thing. Like, I got into the tea shop as a way, like, how do I afford making content? Because content creators don't really get paid for their content. By the time you can actually make a living on your content, there's so many other ways of making a living. It's effectively like you need to find some other way of making money on the internet in addition to being a creator. And so the tea has been really good for that, because, you know, people can enjoy it. Like, a certain amount of people that like the videos will go to the website and buy tea. But even if you don't buy tea, I am just happy people are learning about the tea culture. Questions from Luke Storm says, why exactly is Chinese comedy? I don't understand the difference between traditional comedy. So there's all sorts of comedy in China. And if you missed it, I have a book on my 10 years doing comedy in China here. That's coming out in February. It's called This Was Funnier in China. When I say traditional, so I apprenticed to a master comedian to learn a comedy art form known as xiangsheng, or crosstalk comedy. You know, I won't put that up there. Crosstalk comedy, because so what crosstalk is, it's an art form that goes back to the Qing dynasty, about 150 years old. It's all taught master to disciple, master to disciple, master to disciple. There's a family tree of all of the different masters and who they took as disciples. And it's a 2-person comedy style. So there's a joker who's performing, and then a straight man who's kind of like the audience's foil during this whole thing. The straight man also can tell jokes, but it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's a lot of energy involved. 今天我给你们说一段相声。没错，首先得教一下基本规则。您说， like, you know, back and forth and back and forth. And I learned a whole bunch of traditional routines. I learned a bunch of routines with jokes that are 100 years old, some of which are still funny. For those 100-year-old jokes, everyone has heard them before in China. So the real game is like leading them to think you're going to hit one punchline and then kind of innovating on it somehow. There were plenty of opportunities to do that actually as an American, because no one knows what I'm going to say if I'm doing traditional comedy. So it actually is in some ways a better way of doing the traditional comedy, because you have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth, right? And it's also generally performed in tea houses, and that's actually one of the ways that I got into tea, was when I was doing comedy shows, the traditional comedy shows. I spent a lot of time in tea houses. And tea houses in China, there are many different types, but many of them will have a stage, and they'll have different sorts of arts performance, wushu, you know, singing, teapot performance. They have these teapots that have a very long spout, like a 6-foot long spout, and people will, you know, kind of like have all these like different ways of performing with the teapot. It's just one of those things where, like, it's one of the fun things about doing Chinese culture is that it's just so deep, and, you know, it's there's no other country that I know of with like so much of that culture that's so rich, that's so isolated from the rest of the world, because their internet is blocked, and so they can't really get out, and nobody in our culture tends to want to go in. So it's a very interesting place. So we're gonna try this super steeped. We're gonna try the over steeped yellow Malfung. This has been in there probably for 3 or 4 minutes, so that's a sort of crazy over steep that I would be worried people would do by accident. Look how pretty the leaves are though. I'm actually very happy with the quality of these leaves for the price that they wanted for them. This actually could be something that winds up on the shop. Cheers, look at that. Very, very cool. All right, we're gonna try that. Malicious Licorice says, yo, it's that tea dude. What up, my guy? How you doing? I'm just chilling on a Sunday, drinking some tea, waiting for the Patriots game to start. We are back, baby, if y'all didn't know. Cheers. Okay, here's the oversteeped yellowmouth foam. That's no good. Oh, bad. No, that's what I was worried about. I'm not surprised because I steeped it, I thought, pretty well, and it had, oh, that's really bad. Ooh. We're gonna have to switch it up. Whoa, that's not great. Yeah, this is the thing though about a lot of teas. Like a lot of times when you think of like within China, within the tea market, it's very competitive. There's, you know, so many provinces grow tea, so many mountains, there's so much tea available on the market. And so when people try to buy a more expensive tea versus a less expensive tea, one way you can get a good tea cheap is that some tea that they'll make it, they'll do the processing, they'll taste it, and they'll find, hey, this tastes really good if you make it right, but really bad if you make it wrong. That will knock the price down because the really good tea you can really abuse. You can do just about anything you want to it, and it's still going to taste pretty good. But if you have a lower quality tea, it might taste good if you make it perfectly, but then not so good if you overdo it. This is actually, ironically, one of the reasons tea bags are so bad is because to make a tea bag well actually takes a lot of skill. Because if you're going to really try to get the best experience out of that tea bag, one, there's not a lot of tea in there, so you need to steep a long time. But two, the tea is all powderized, so the surface area is enormous, so it steeps very quickly. So one part of the way the tea is set up is it makes you want to steep it fast because there's so much there's so much surface area, it's going to extract all at once, including those bitter flavors. But if you then extract everything quickly, there's not actually a lot of tea in there, so you need to then lengthen the steep time. And same with the heat. You can't steep it too hot or else it's going to get bitter because the quality is very low. So if you overheat it even a little, it's going to get bitter. And then if you back off the heat too much, now you need to extend the steep time even longer. So managing to hit the middle triple point between all of these different variables with a tea bag is very, very difficult. And obviously no one's spending that kind of energy on a tea bag anyway. So that's part of the reason why a lot of people's impression of tea is like bitter, tannic. It isn't like that if you have good tea and you make it well. And it isn't like that if you have good tea, even if you make it poorly. So, all right, we're gonna try another sample here. By the way, if you guys are just joining, I'm Jesse, I'm your tea guy. I lived in China for 9 years. I know a lot of tea farms, tea shop owners. I just drink a lot of tea and I find some good ones and I put them on my shop and I give them to you. What do we got here? I'm trying to do something that I don't have on the site already because they send me samples and a lot of times, let's try this. Let's try some Golden Needle, and that's from Yunnan. Yep, Yunnan. Yunnan Golden Needle. I love Yunnan tea. Always up for some Yunnan tea. So, question over here. Do we sell Oriental Beauty? Yes, we do. I have a bug-bitten Oriental Beauty, and if you wait until February, we're going to have Oriental Beauty tea oranges as well. So we bought Oriental Beauty, put it into the oranges, and it was a success. Actually, before... I'm sorry, guys. I'm kind of half working here too because I need to take notes on that sample. I have just a notes thing for all these tea samples I get, and I don't want to try a tea sample and then forget about it before I make my decision about what's going on the site. So I just want to take down some notes here, if you don't mind. Okay, so. Huang Maofeng, the Huang Maofeng. So I think I would rate this tea pretty high because it was actually quite good for the price. Taking down the batch number. And then, yeah, so I would describe this one as sweet, a bit more depth than a normal green, good quality for price, a bit astringent, cannot be oversteeped. And then I would say just kind of like, also just pretty smooth. I like that. So it's one of these teas where like, it was actually quite good. Is it distinctive enough? I think so, because there's not a lot of yellow tea out there, period. So we're going for that. So, and then the next tea that we're gonna have, this is called Golden Needle. Here we go. This is from Yunnan, and you'll see why they call it Golden Needle when I show you the leaves. By the way, if you have the ability to sit down and make some tea yourself, I highly recommend it. This is the universe telling you it's time to try to enjoy some tea on a Sunday. Here we go. So here's the Golden Needle. You can see why it's called Golden Needle. I'll show it to, I have 3 cameras running here. Questions over here. I would love to know, Close Culture says, I would love to know what kind of zesty or citrusy type teas you love and can't get enough of. So in the Chinese tea tradition, there are some like teas with like citrusy notes or lemony notes, but they don't actually put like lemon peel or citrus peel in the tea all the time. The exception is that there is orange peel. Like there's this thing called chenpi, which I have a big bag of right here, which I took back from the orange farm. But this is, oh, that's the greatest smell in the world. It's really a shame you can't smell that because it's like unreal good. But if you can look in here and see all of the orange peel, these are the many year aged dried orange peel. And these, I mean, I guess the answer would be anything that uses this, because that's the fragrance on these things is unbelievable. You can see the many-year-old. Look at how old that chenpi is. And if I wasn't trying this with a sample, I'm tempted to put a little bit in there because it's just so good. And you can add this to. People would have like a bag of it like this, and you can add it to the tea you're already doing, or you can actually pack a full orange full of tea. So I guess that would be my answer: is the tea oranges. We have oranges that are full of tea. And in February, we're coming out with a new line of tea oranges. So that would be my answer. Questions. Naina says, have you ever tried any tea from the Middle East / Iran? I have not. Let me think. I mean, I had like a Persian green tea bag or whatever that's very popular out here in the Los Angeles Jewish community. There's a lot of Persian Jews who had to flee the country when the Ayatollah took over, and a lot of the Persian Jews, basically everybody, there's no Jews left in Iran. They all moved here to LA. And so like Persian tea is like a big thing here. Although personally, I think the Chinese tea is better, but people like what they like. Whatever you grow up drinking, people like that. So I've never had any like high quality tea from those areas though, just whatever stuff. Questions from Thor. Are you gonna get Da Hong Pao in the EU warehouse? I'm hopeful that next year we're going to build out a lot more stuff in the EU and UK warehouses. It's just been very difficult to deal with the customs. And so there's a lot of stuff I'd like to do that is not happening because of the customs, but we will work through it. Also, some of the areas in China that produce certain types of teas have a lot of difficulty passing the EU regulations for pesticide tests. Not because they're over pesticiding them now, but because the land in some areas had so much pesticide in it. And we don't buy tea from those areas, obviously. But like, it means that there are fewer providers. Everything that we sell is, FDA approved, EU approved. If it's in the EU shop, it's EU approved. If it's in the America shop, it's FDA approved. We actually pay a lot of attention to this stuff. So, all right, here we go. I'm gonna try the Golden Needle, Yunnan Golden Needle. So these, you can really tell the gold here. This is a good example. Look at the gold color on that guy. The webcam is actually not really great at that, but I'm trying to think of, you can see the gold color of that leaf there. Very, very cool. Cat Girl said, I remember when you started and I knew you would do so well. So amazing. Thank you so much. And it's wacky. I think we're up to like 1.5 million followers across all the channels. It's like, that's a lot of people to watch a dude make tea. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're new, I'm a tea guy. I'm Jesse. I lived in China 9 years, probably 10, more than 10 now if you count me going back and stuff. And I know a lot of tea farmers, tea shop owners, and I get really good teas. I put them on my website, jessesteahouse.com, and I run a subscription club, although right now the subscription's sold out. So you have to wait until February if you want to join our club. Very nice. So Yunnan tea, a property of it is it's very strong. A lot of these teas are Asamika varieties, which is the type of tea that's grown in India and Kenya and Sri Lanka, these areas, because it does better in the kind of more tropical temperature. Look at how clean that is, though. Very, very nice, very clean. Can you see me through the thing? You should be able to see me if I. Yeah. Weird. Trying to get. Sometimes you can get the angle such that you see like my whole head upside down. All right. Cheers, everybody. This is the wash, so we'll give a little bit to our teapots here. We got Xander, Chonky Horse, and then, I'll put the teapots on your side of things so you can see what's going on. We got the Duck, Nugget, and Chonky Horse and Xander over here. And cheers, everybody. Nice. This is very solid. It's sweet. It's got a little chocolate note. The only thing I think it's missing is that I've had better quality versions of this and it really pops. This is good. It doesn't like explode. That being said, it's probably about 1/3 of the price of that explode stuff. So that's a decision I'll have to make, which is, it's again, pretty good for the quality. Sometimes you find tea providers that they make really good tea for the quality, but is it good enough to really be in essentially a specialty shop? Because in my opinion, if you're gonna get stuff from a place like mine, my job is to find stuff you really can't find elsewhere or would have difficulty finding elsewhere. So RM 69 something. Hey Jesse, your tea's got me back into Chinese tea after 7 years. I'm making my first Yunnan sourcing order in years. My favorite tea is Laoshan. I want your tray soon. Thank you so much. Well, I'm if you're getting back into tea because of me, please come to my shop. But I do encourage everybody to try different vendors if they find other places. I really think our teas will stand up to whoever is selling tea in the West. And yeah, if you need tea trays as well, all this stuff is on the website as well if you're looking for starter sets. We have a shipment that is in the port in New Jersey that's coming back in with a lot more tea equipment. We're out of a lot of stuff. Although if we added a new functionality onto the website, because we'd be out of stock of stuff and then people would individually message me or email me saying when is it coming back? We have a new functionality now where you can go to if you're on the page of a product on the website and it's out of stock, there's a notify me button and you can put your email address in there and it will notify you as to when the item comes back into stock. So there we go. Cheers. I also, again, if you noticed, left this to oversteep a little bit to see how it's doing. By the way, the fact that other tea was so bitter when it was oversteeped, and I oversteeped the 4th or 5th steep of it, meant it really was bitter. That's not so bad. That's not bad at all. That held up pretty well to the longer steep. So these are all the things I look through when I do my tea testing. Cheers from Dead Heather 2000 says, love your channel and it makes me really want to get into high quality tea. Has anyone told you you look like Dean Ween? Because you do, lol, don't worry, that's definitely not bad in any way. I do not know who Dean Ween is. Apparently, here are the people I get. People sometimes say that I sound like Tom Hanks. Don't know. In China, everyone thinks I look like Mr. Bean. I don't know if that's true. And then apparently, I've heard this from multiple people. Apparently, I look like the former German premier Olaf Scholz. Olaf Scholz. I don't know if there are any Germans in the chat that can confirm or deny that I look like Olaf Scholz. I was thinking of trying to make like some specific, like, you know, like commercial for Germany, being like, you know, everyone tells me I look like Olaf Scholz. So Hanks, yep, never noticed. I don't really see Olaf in you, and that's from Moritz, which I assume is a German. I've heard from several people, including we kind of have like a I suppose you call him a team member. He helps out with a bunch of stuff for our EU stuff. David in Germany, like actual German dude, and he told me I look like Olaf Scholz. He says you do not look like Scholz. Everybody is. I don't know, man. I'm getting conflicted. Information here about whether I look like former German Premier Olaf Scholz. And if you've never experienced this before, it's a little bit destabilizing to not know if you look like former German Premier Olaf Scholz. I can only share my lived experience. Thank you for listening. Hey man, I like your content a lot. This is from Moritz. Just got into Japanese green tea a couple months ago, and your content keeps me interested in learning more about after the green tea chapter. Cheers and thanks. Green tea is great. I love it. A lot of times people get into tea from like green tea. They've had it before. They try a higher quality green tea. They're like, wow. Then they move on to some of the funkier stuff. So it's all, we call it a tea journey, man. I'm glad to be part of your tea journey. And I'm glad to be able to share it with you. Here we go. Having some more of our, a little bit supercharged tea over here. Questions over here. What are the tea animals for? So these are called tea pets. They live on the tea table, and you raise them over time by pouring tea on them. The first steep of a lot of Chinese teas is discarded for a couple of reasons. One, teas go through this like progression where they open up, get better and stronger in the middle, and then eventually fade away. And so part of the idea of being a good host is you want to give your guests the best. And if you're someone like me that has plenty of tea and you want to get to the better parts of the tea quicker, you can wash off that first steep. Also, the first steep contains more caffeine. And if you're also someone like me that's going to sit here drinking tea for an hour, trying multiple teas at the same time, you know, I might do 3 or 4 teas in a tea session. I don't necessarily want to have maximum caffeine. If you're like, no, I want as much caffeine as possible, drink the wash. But a lot of people are going to pour out the wash, and so the tea pets became a fun thing to pour out the wash on. And Chinese people, I wouldn't call it a serious belief. I think kind of like some people have lucky numbers or whatever. People think that it's auspicious and lucky to pour on the tea pet. So whatever attribute the tea pet has, if you have a very chill deer, then pouring tea on the tea pet is going to give that sort of like calmness, sereneness. That's the idea behind the tea pets. I had one angry YouTuber comment that they thought it was idolatry, and I don't think it's idolatry personally. I'm also, I don't know. I think some people are going to believe what they want to believe, and if you believe it's idolatry, don't do the tea pets. All totally fine with me. Questions over here, a lot of other teas. Approximately how much do you spend on your daily drinker per gram? Everybody has a different take on this. So the best advice I got in terms of like how much you should spend on your tea, like what is the right quality to price ratio for you. One of my tea teachers gave me the advice. They said, think about how much you really enjoy tea. If you're the type of person who occasionally makes it once every now and then, that's one thing. If you're the type of person who on a Sunday is going to sit down, invite friends over, or live stream, really enjoy their tea time, really likes the separation of real life from making the tea well, using the equipment, caring about the quality of your stuff, you're gonna have different budgets. So you think about how much you really like enjoy the tea, that's your total budget. You know, think about like, you know, hey, I like going to a movie and doing all that stuff with the parking and the stuff and the popcorn or whatever. A movie is going to cost me $50. Would I rather spend $5 on a tea session 10 times? Then I could buy a I could buy a $50 cake of tea that's going to give me 50 sessions. That's as expensive as anything I sell. 50 grams for $50. I don't think I have anything more expensive than that on the site. That's like top stuff. A lot of people would say like, hey, I really enjoy my tea. $5 for me to have an amazing tea and share it with several people is not a lot of money. Other people are like, hey, I can't afford to do $5 a pop and do multiple teas in a session. So they might have their number be less. Some people really like having very fancy equipment. If you want to spend money on, purple clay pots, you can spend quite a lot of money, but you don't have to. You can use a gaiwan, you can use a basic cup, you can even use a mug if you want to, especially if money is tight. I would rather spend my money personally on more tea than on equipment. I would have some basic equipment and then you make really good tea rather than having really fancy equipment and making bad tea. But that's just my take on it. So, for me now, I'm really blessed because not only do I have all this tea, but like all the tea that's on the shop, until you guys buy it, it's all just mine. I paid for it already. So I don't think about tea in terms of how much I'm spending on it per gram anymore, because one of the benefits of being a tea guy on the internet is I've just given myself license to really just have fun. And if I want to buy something and it's tea related, I buy it, even if it's a little pricey. And also, I have boxes and boxes of samples that get sent to me. So I'm really not at a loss for tea of all price ranges. I have more than I can ever drink in my life. It's a perk of having put up a lot of money in inventory. So a lot like some randos on the internet will sometimes like bash my company and they say, oh, he's drop shipping. Dude, I wish. I have so much inventory in the US, in Canada, in the UK, in the EU. I had to pay for all of it up front. I had to pay the tariffs when it comes in up front. I had to pay my VAT in Europe up front. It would be so much easier if I was drop shipping it, but I'm not. We're really like, I run a brand. I buy the tea from the farmers. We design all our own packaging. We package it all. We label it. We get our FDA and our EU pesticide test done. We do everything legally. Like, I'm not bringing tea back in a suitcase and then selling chips off of a cake at a time. Like, I'm giving a run at trying to do this as well as I can. So also, if you're in the US, Canada, UK, or EU, we have all the stuff that's already in there. So a lot of people, when they buy tea, they have to wait 6 weeks for it to come from China. Some of them miscarry. But for my stuff, it's already in your market, which is why I spent all that energy and time and money to do it, so that when you buy it, you get like 2-day shipping. By the way, we cannot guarantee shipping for Christmas anymore at this date, but we can still ship it to you. So just letting you know. Questions over here from Sacha Anderson said, I work for a bigger tea manufacturer, IT guy, and was a bigger tea manufacturer as an IT guy. It was a dream tasting all the different things. That is a perk of being in a tea company. You get some good stuff. We have customer service people in New Jersey who do our customer service, Angel and Claudine, and it's actually a mother-daughter team that does our English language customer service. And so when you email us, we have actual people answering, which is one of the reasons why it takes a little bit more time. We usually get back to people within a day, but like, we're not doing robot AI customer service. We have real people doing the customer service, and they get a lot of good tea, especially because our warehouse is in New Jersey, so it's like right next to them. They get a lot of good tea. Questions. Umni says, do we ship to the Philippines? Yes, I do, but you'd have to place an order probably from the US or Canadian store would be the cheapest. Unfortunately, I can't ship it directly from China to the Philippines. I just don't have that set up. Maybe in the future I'll open a Singapore warehouse or something like that for Asia, but it's like I just don't have enough followers in those regions to make it really worthwhile. Questions over here. Joaquin says, any advice for finding tea? Hold on, what's this say? Any advice for finding / picking quality tea at the lower price range? the challenge is you need to drink it to know if it's good. In order to have an idea, like part of the thing I do on my shop is by spending all this time to select the tea, it gets more expensive because I spend a lot of time and energy on it, but also, you know, you're not gonna swing and miss completely. Like, you know, my goal is that the worst tea on my site is gonna be really good. When you are buying cheaper tea, it is a lot up in the air. It is possible to get pretty decent quality tea quite a bit cheaper than what I sell. But what you give up is knowing what you're getting. Also, you're giving up knowing, like, if you want it again, whether it's even the same batch. You know, like, part of the thing about higher quality tea is it doesn't last forever. You know, Lipton and these other brands, one of the reasons why you can go to a hotel in Malaysia or a hotel in South Dakota, and if you have a Lipton tea bag, it will taste the same. That's because instead of quality, they're kind of going for consistency. These things are, you can't be super high quality and super consistent, because tea, it's like wine. Every crop, it's going to taste a little bit different. Every different mountain, it tastes a little bit different. The high-end tea people really like this, and they want a specific batch from a specific year, but eventually it runs out. And so what the people in the bigger, like, giant tea places do is they will buy tea from 1,000 different farms, blend it all together, and so that way, if one of the farms this year tastes a little different, or if one of the farms wants, like, more money, they can cut that farmer out that wants to be paid more, and they can basically have a lot more control over what they're paying. And so the system for the tea bags is really set up to make sure that they got as much cheap tea as possible, and also to make sure that no farmer had enough leverage to cause the customer problems, or the company problems. So, but with the higher end tea, you don't know what you're getting. So part of the challenge, if you find, like, you know, cheaper tea, is every batch going to be consistent? When does it change? Is it changing? These are questions you don't know. That being said, you can go and try out some different places. I mean, obviously look for whole leaves. If it's a powder already, I'm kind of like not going to drink it. If you have clean, unbroken leaves, that's a good sign, even if the tea is cheap. And also, if you can find, again, like, you know, you can see here, like, once you make it, like, these leaves look really pretty. Like, they look like full leaves. They look like somebody picked them, you know. Again, if you can find hand-picked, so again, the way you can tell the hand-picked tea as opposed to the machine processed tea is that the hand-picked tea, one, it'll be all in one piece. It won't be grinded or chopped up. But also, you can look at how much stem is left. See, there's actually very little stem left on there. There's very little stem left on the leaf. And the reason is because when people are trained to pick tea, they're trained to do exactly what they did here. If I can show you. Is it in here still, or did it fall out? This is a one bud, one leaf pick. So you can see here, they're either pick one bud, one leaf, or one bud, two leaves. So this style, they pick one bud, one leaf. So that's the bud up there, that's the leaf. One bud, one leaf. And it's picked with a very small amount of stem. So that is, that's a sign that your tea was picked by hand, which again is quality. Even the same, you know, natural conditions, if the tea is picked by hand, you get less stem, less woody flavor, more sweetness, more fragrance from the bud. And also, in general, the type of people that would pay collectors to be able to pick the tea by hand, that company cares more about the quality of their tea. They're in it to try to really impress people with the quality of their tea. So those are things that I would look for regardless of price. If you can find stuff that looks hand-picked and it has full leaves at a lower price, it could be worth a try. The danger, and this is another reason why I really recommend having a tea guy or having somebody help you make the pick, is because if you buy 3 things of tea, but one of them is not good, even if the other 2 are good and cheaper, you'll never wind up drinking the one that isn't good. And I have a lot of baskets full of stuff, like if I get a sample of a tea and it's not good, I never finish it. So I could have, sometimes they send me these whole cakes, like big cakes of tea. I'll try it once, I'm like, that's just, I have so many teas that are better than that. I just never drink the bad stuff. And so if if you're able to get like a ton of tea for a cheap price, it doesn't matter unless it's good enough to kind of outcompete the other teas you have. Because you can only be drinking one tea at a time, right? And even on a day where you might do 2, 3, 4 sessions, you're never going to get to tea number 20. So if you're anything like me and you got tea all over the place, it's just like once you have a tea that's not up to snuff, it doesn't matter how much you got it for or what you paid per gram. You just never drink it. That's been my experience. We're over here. Any other questions? Any chance of getting tea resin in the EU shop? Not in the short term. I can't figure out how to get through the regulations with the tea resin. The problem with the tea resin in the EU is that the EU pesticide testings require me to send in 1.5 kilos of the product. But the tea resin, and if you guys don't know, these are the tea resins. It's real brewed tea that's been dissolved and then boiled down into a resin. And we make these with the farmers. It's a very unique product. The problem with the resins is that one piece of resin is enough for potentially up to 40 ounces of tea. Somewhere between 12 and 40 ounces, depending on how rich you want it. But it makes a lot. So 1.5 kilos is like swimming pools of tea. And then in those swimming pools of tea, you can't pass even a little bit of pesticide and they will say it's not safe. So if you have 1.5 kilos of tea leaves, those leaves pass because there's always a trace of this or a trace of that from the air or from a small bit of smoke from the air or something like that. But in the resin, it gets concentrated so much. And I paid for pesticide tests that went back, and some of them passed and some of them didn't. And even I'm not gonna sell it if it didn't pass the local tests. That being said, I personally believe that those tests are ridiculous. It's just not made for that product. Like there's nothing dangerous about drinking the tea resin that we have on our website. It passes all the FDA tests. It passes the UK tests. But the EU in particular is just crazy, and this is such a small product that nobody cares when I go in and complain about 1.5 kilos is like, I don't know, like 10,000 portions. I don't know, like it's something like that. 100,000 portions, so anyway, it just means that in the EU, I don't know when it's going to be able to come to the EU. You can still buy it. You just have to buy it from the US store, or soon it will be in the UK. You can get it from the UK. But I just want to be open and transparent about why it's not there. I know that people want it. I get hundreds of messages. I know you guys want it, but if you want it in the meantime, you can still order it. You just have to order from outside. Questions over here. Yes, to have to base the testing on the weight, that is what's happening. Anton says, fair, I'm from Denmark and actually prefer the flavor of the hard tap water when drinking it himself. I guess we'll have to try both. Try different types of water. Everybody's discussing what the best types of water are. You need a little bit of mineralization. So like, distilled water oftentimes will taste flat. Filtered water is usually best if you can get it. Or reverse osmosis water can also be good, but if it's too clean, sometimes you have a little bit of a damper flavor. And then if there's too much mineralization in the water, like if the water is really hard, then that can also kind of dampen the flavor of the stuff. Also, I don't know if you guys have the problem, but I went to an Airbnb in Tennessee in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and that water was very sulfurous. I don't know why, but like the difference between the tap water and bottled water in that place was very, very extreme. Cheers. Questions from Damon Shirey, or Shiri. I can speak, there's too many questions. I'm sorry about that. I can speak to how amazing it is that when buying tea through Jesse, we can have confidence in the safety and quality we're getting. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to, I think about this from the perspective of if I hadn't lived in China 10 years, what would be hard about being a tea hobbyist? And, I wouldn't want to wait 6 weeks for the tea to be shipped one at a time from China. I wouldn't want to worry about the heavy metals or pesticides or anything like that. I wouldn't want to deal with like AI or robot customer service. And so whatever I wouldn't want to happen to me, I try to do the opposite. So yeah, that's what I meant. So cheers, everybody. More tea questions. Here we go. No Thanks says, do you have the Shomei Mandarin Peel white tea to buy, or is it only available in the sampler? We used to have it. We ran out of it. We tried to restock it. They didn't have it anymore. So we're actually going to make our own at some point next year. So keep an eye on that. We're also going to be coming out with a white tea orange, February 1st, or February. We have a launch month now. My goal is February 1st. If everything works well and it goes through customs properly, it will be available early February in all the different markets. So that's, if you like that Shomei Mandarin Peel tea, you'll really like our white tea oranges. It's just more of both, more tea, more orange. Better quality orange too. The orange that we've got are really, really good. Very cool. Questions over here. Moritz has a good questions about patina on teapots possibly affecting taste for good or ill. So the patina on the outside of a teapot is not going to do anything. So if you pour a lot of tea on the outside of your pot and it looks one way versus the other, that's not going to do anything. On the inside of the pot, one of the reasons these purple clay pots are so valuable is because the special type of clay is very porous, and so it can absorb scent and flavor from the tea. So if you have a purple clay pot and let's say you make one type of tea with it repeatedly, like let's say you use it only for aged white tea, that aged white tea flavor is going to get in there and supercharge the pot. And then some people say, you know, the legend is eventually after using it for 20 years, you can pour hot water in there and then it tastes like tea. I don't know if that's true. Don't, you know, I'm not selling those pots, telling people that's going to happen, but that sort of thing can definitely be affected. A lot of people do have specific purple clay pots for specific types of teas. On porcelain is fired at a much higher heat, and so the high heat of the porcelain, the high heat of the porcelain creates a barrier where there is no absorption of the scent or the flavor. And so porcelain is a very neutral type of material to use. Everything's going to taste good in the porcelain. You don't need to worry about, oh, I made a green tea in there. You know, I made a really dark pu'er in there and now I want to make a green tea. Once you wash it off, it's washed off. They don't need to be put into the dishwasher. You just rinse it out with hot water and you're good. So I'd say that's the main thing I think of when I think of the patina and how it could affect the flavor. Yeah, very, very cool. Questions over here. Somebody asking, can you show the dragon tea pet? Yep. Here we go. This is my dragon tea pet, Pendor. Extra points for everybody who's getting the Pendor reference. Cheers, cheers, cheers. And he's a good boy. Love it. Questions over here. I have Yame matcha from Fukuoka. Am I supposed to pour out the first week brew? No. Matcha, there is no wash. I don't know a lot about matcha, but I know that. I actually went to a Chinese matcha plant and went to the matcha tea hills in Guizhou this last year. And I was gonna do like a 5 matcha sampler, and I picked out the 5 matchas and I brought all the samples back to America and I gave a couple to my friends and we tried them all out and we're like, yeah, let's do this one. We put together the sampler. I went back 3 weeks after I left the matcha place where all these 5 matchas had been in stock and they were sold out of all of them. This is my learning about being a matcha guy, because hopefully next year we're going to try to get some matcha onto the site, Chinese matcha, and it's moving so fast. And unless you are buying from a high-end, you know, really high-end place, you're drinking Chinese matcha, or oftentimes Japanese and Chinese matcha mixed. It's such a weirdo market right now because of the giant boom that like there's like Japanese companies that buy Chinese matcha, mix it with Japanese matcha, and then label it as coming from Japan. There's Chinese companies that bought old matcha brands, make the matcha in China, export it through that brand, and it's Chinese matcha, but it looks Japanese, and they actually did buy the name of the company. There's Chinese matcha that just straight up, they don't tell you where it's from. So like if you go to the supermarket and you're buying matcha in a bag, almost guaranteed, if it doesn't say it came from a specific place in Japan, you can be pretty sure it was made in China. Which doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like, don't think you're getting super rare Japanese matcha when you go to the supermarket. It's not how it works. And one of the weird things about this is it makes it very difficult to know what matcha you're drinking or what quality it is or what it's even made of or any of that. And so that's one of the things I hope I can do for when we do bring out our Chinese matcha. I will be letting you know it is Chinese matcha. It's high altitude matcha from Guizhou. What's going on with it? Who made it? What are the processes? The same as I would do for a tea, I want to do for the matcha. So unfortunately, it may need to wait until like late next year at the earliest because they're just sold out. And everywhere I went, they were like sold out. And you need to make big orders ahead of time and put down cash. It's like a crazy, crazy market for matcha out there. So I got to be safe about that too, because it also goes bad. It's not like, a lot of the teas that I have, if you buy a red tea or a white tea or a pu'er, or even some oolongs, it's going to get better and better as it goes on and it ages, and I can afford to keep it in my warehouse. If it's matcha and I don't sell it, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So that's something else to keep in mind. So, recently came across your YouTube channel after buying my first tea set. Learned a lot. Thank you so much. Welcome. Glad to be a part of your tea journey. If you're new, go on YouTube and search Jesse's Tea House Teaism 101 or Gung Fu Tea 101. And that teaism series, I really need to make more of them. That's probably the best kind of concentrated, here's how to do tea basic thing. Yeah. Nelson Kwok says, hey Jesse, I did a double take. I saw a short you posted a while with you in Vancouver. I recognize the intersection behind you. I'll be going back to Vancouver in March, I think. I have two of my employees in China, Claire Hong, who's our team lead in China and our leading branding designer who does all the branding design for the packaging, and her husband, Haoming, Alex. They spend most of the year in China, but Haoming is actually a Canadian citizen. He moved to Canada when he was in middle school, and his parents still live in Vancouver. So every winter, they go back there for Chinese New Year. They spend 6 to 8 weeks with their parents. And Haoming loves snowboarding. So I made this one video about snowboarding in Vancouver last time, but I went in like April when it was like the last weekend you could snowboard. And so this year I think I'm gonna go back in March, and I'll post something if I do a Vancouver tea event. It could be fun to do a Vancouver tea event. Let everybody in Canada know we have a warehouse in Vancouver now. So if you want tea in Canada, you don't need to pay any American tariffs. It's in Vancouver. It's coming to you from Canada. We paid the Canadian import tax of 6%. Oh, how I wish it were a 6% tax in America. And so the Canadian shop is actually cheaper than the American shop right now because of the tariffs. So cheers. Questions over here. Do you have any tips for properly steeping jasmine tea? Yeah, so jasmine tea can be a little tricky because most of the time when people call tea jasmine tea, what they mean is it's green tea infused with jasmine flower scent. So you really want to make it the way you would make a green tea. If it's pure jasmine flower, that's a little bit different, but if you look at the tea, you'll be able to tell. Is it tea leaves or is it pure flowers? Most of it is green tea. So in that case, I would try doing it at 85 Celsius, 185 Fahrenheit. That's the easy one to remember. 85 C is 185 F. Try a steep of 30 seconds. It depends on, if your tea vendor has info for you, like on all of my teas, I give you guys steeping instructions. Follow those, at least as a start, and then adjust to your taste. But if I had to go in with completely no knowledge, that's what I'd be trying, like about 20 to 30 seconds steep at 85 C, 185 F. And I don't think you could go that wrong with that. If it's not strong enough, steep it longer or hotter. But depending on the quality of your green tea, unless you have a very high quality jasmine, and there's not actually a lot of high quality jasmine available in the West because it's just like, people in the West don't buy really good tea. So a lot of the brands, and jasmine is a common tea that's sold in the West, so there's even less incentive to go high end on it because there's a lot of options. So unless you have a very high quality green tea base for your jasmine tea, once you get above 85, 90 Celsius, you're going to start getting a lot more bitter flavor out of there. Cheers. Questions over here. Thank you, Dolly, for the gifts. I got a little gifter badge. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Mr. Fisher says, amazing, thanks so much. It's good. It's from China. My wife's auntie gifted it to me, so apparently good quality. It should have instructions, but I have a hard time focusing camera to translate properly. Yeah, also, I don't want to like bash random tea companies I don't even know. A lot of the packaging of Chinese tea, unless it's high-end tea, a lot of the packaging, they just buy the packaging wholesale and they put all of the tea in the same bags, and the packaging and the steeping instructions were just printed on there. So you'll even find Chinese tea you buy in China that tells you to steep it 3 to 5 minutes, and that's a horrible instruction. But a lot, like again, the question is, are you buying it from a tea guy that only does tea, or are you buying it from like an Asian grocery store, which is going to be better than the Western grocery store, but it's fundamentally a grocery store. Just like if you want to get really high-end meat, you go to a butcher that does meat. And then if you want just like a steak or whatever, you're not going to get the same quality at a grocery store you would at a butcher. Similarly, even if you go to like a tourist tea shop in China, you're not going to get the quality you would if you get it from a tea guy or like a real tea place. A farmer selling their own tea, or a company like mine that like sources really good tea and then puts them all together. So even if you have generic Chinese packaging, unless you know who you bought it from and they're like a tea shop or whatever, I wouldn't even necessarily trust the steeping instructions on there. So like, that's really good. Thank you again for the gift. I had like a heart. Thank you, Dustin. Appreciate it. Yeah, Yixing. Very, very cool. Do a little bit over here. What is your favorite herbal infusion? It's from Nature Doc. This I actually have a strong answer for. This is the one I actually drink a lot of. It's the Hainanese yellow rosewood tea that I have on my site, or tea. So yellow rosewood is a type of tree that's used for very high-end Chinese furniture. So the yellow rosewood tree would like be used for furniture for like the emperor. And so yellow rosewood trees are very valued. Even nowadays, you don't need to be the emperor to get one. But this farm in Hainan Island is like kind of the Chinese version of Hawaii. It's a tropical island off the south coast of China, kind of on the same latitude as like Thailand and Vietnam. That island is a perfect place to grow yellow rosewood trees. And so the company that makes this is actually very unique. I think I'm the only person outside of China that sells this stuff. They take the leaves from their yellow rosewood trees as they're growing them as like a wood crop, but they take the leaves, they hand pick them, they process them like they were tea leaves, they wither them on a big tray, they heat treat them, they ferment them for a day, they do all of the process of making Chinese red tea, which is known in the West as black tea. So they go through all the process of making it into a tea, but because it's not a tea tree tea leaf, it's the leaf of a yellow rosewood tree, there's just no caffeine in it. So it's not decaffeinated, it's non-caffeinated. There was never any caffeine in it. And so this is my kind of go-to tea in the evening. After like 5 p.m., I would be drinking this. It's already 4, so I'm like coming up on the end of my time here. In fact, I should probably get going. It's already been 73 minutes. I've been on an hour. That's crazy. But cheers. So we'll take 1 or 2 last questions, but before I head out, I just want to thank everybody who bought tea during the holiday season. I mean, we had a big holiday sale this year, bigger than expected. It's one of the reasons we're sold out of so much stuff. So thank you guys so much. You know, I already feel like based off of the strength of the holiday sale, like so much more confident to go into next year. We have cash again, which is good in the middle of the trade war when we couldn't import anything and we just didn't make any money. It was pretty rough, and so it was a lot harder. We had to figure out a way to make everything work when we just weren't making any money, and we had to pay all of the tariffs up front. So we got a huge tax increase along with the fact that we couldn't get more stuff in. It sucked. And next year, while the tariff rates are still very high, tea has been removed from the tariff list, which is good. So the tariffs now that we're facing are just the anti-China tariffs, not the global tariffs. That's one thing. But but then the second thing is just like it just shows like even as it's a challenge for everybody, money is hard for everybody right now, and just to see people say like we really do want the tea. I added a tariff fee to the tea cost, which I didn't want to do, but I had to do, and seeing that people didn't abandon the shop is like, oh, thank God. Because all I want to do is focus on finding the good tea, and at the end of the day, a lot of how much it costs is just out of my control because I have to go into the Chinese market, and whatever the Chinese market is charging, that's what I have to pay. It's an unusual market in that way. Westerners are used to getting the best of the thing, and then in Asia or Africa or whatever these other markets, they get the less good stuff. Here it's the opposite, where the Asian market is willing to pay more for the good tea, and so I need to go up into there to bring it back over to the West. And so a lot of people are like, oh, $25 for 50 grams of tea, that's a lot of money. That's about as cheap as you can get really good quality tea, because people in China bid up the price. It's really good. And yet people will spend like $7 on boba, which is made with tea with like tea powder and stuff. And I like boba. It's like, for me, it's like ice cream. But it's like people will pay $7 for tea in a boba place, and then when it comes time to paying the equivalent of $1.50 or $2 a session for tea at home, they'll be like, that's expensive. But it's actually a really good deal, in my opinion, if you're making it at home. If you go to Starbucks and they put a tea bag in a cup of hot water and charge you $6, you're paying for their rent, their employees, for everything. They're paying for the cup. The tea is not really a big portion of that. Whereas if you buy good loose leaf and you make good loose leaf, 100% of the money you spent is spent on the tea, on the quality of the actual ingredient. So this is one of the reasons I'm a cheapo. I'm super cheap, and I got into this stuff. Granted, I was in China, so it's even cheaper in China, but even after it comes to here, I think it's still a pretty good deal. Questions over here. Nelson Quack says, hope to see you here. Thanks so much for the great tea. If you have some extra time, we'd love to show hospitality. Thank you. Also, if you need a slope running buddy, me and my uncle love to go. Well, maybe. Maybe we'll do some sort of like tea and snowboarding meetup with all the Vancouver tea followers. Because I'm gonna want to drink tea, and since Halming is a big snowboarder, he is not going to let me not snowboard. Last time I learned how to like leaf down the mountain. So this next time I assume I'll be doing at least some sort of double corkscrew flip. One more over here. Sam Toe says, Jesse is a red tea, black tea on a site called Chiman Red Tea. This will taste the most familiar to Westerners because it is the base for English breakfasts and such. Said very well, Sam Toes. Where's my Chiman? I had a bag of it right here. What? Where'd it go? Here it is. Oh, I have like one session's worth left, but you can see the bag. This is the Chiman Red Tea, premium Chiman Red Tea. Very, very cool. The Clamp says, not sure if you look back through the comments, but come visit Toronto and let me know. My wife's uncle and our tea farm is in Taiwan, and I've got a lot of really good quality stuff. I should do more shows in Toronto. I did a show with Dashan in Toronto, a Chinese stand-up and xiangsheng traditional comedy show, but that was like 2022. So, wow, or 23? Might have been 23. It was, either way, it's kind of shocking. I haven't been back to Toronto in such a long time, so. And again, like, thank you guys. Like, my take on, like, again, the tea business, and especially your guys' support over the winter is like, I'm a pretty cheapo dude. Like, I don't buy a lot of stuff. I just like to drink tea, and I want to spend my time writing books and like making tea videos and flying to Vancouver or Toronto to do tea events or stuff like that. Like, that's where the money goes. So. Just the fact that I can support myself doing this and be able to keep doing live my tea journey without the burden of like needing this trip to make me money is like a huge relief for me. Because, I started off in the early days of my comedy career in China, did not make a lot of money as a stand-up comedian in China in 2012. Eventually, as my career got better, I did, but like, I remember in the beginning being like, I want to travel back and forth. I want to have a base here in America and a base there, and I just couldn't afford it. before. And so now I'm getting to the point where like I can have a base here in America, I can travel to Canada, I can travel to China, I can travel to Taiwan, I can travel to Europe and do these events. And like all I want to do is sit and have tea with people, and that's not expensive. It's like the flights. And so that's where a lot of the money goes, is into the flights and kind of trying to keep my mind unbounded by possibilities. Or unbounded by restrictions, rather. Accept the possibilities, reject the restrictions. So I do want to thank you for that, guys. So cheers. It's going to be my last cup over here. One last question or comments. Our dreams are similar, but my current career has me stuck in one place still, from Oliver English. But you never know. And the way the internet works, it's like you can be like a global, we used to say global citizen, but a global, somebody living in the whole world from wherever you live now, thanks to the internet. And that doesn't mean you need to be traveling 3, 4, 5, 6 months of the year in order to be like, I think the internet has really warped people's perspective on how much people travel, because there's basically what we've been learning is like, if you're in the top, whatever, 5% of income, or really 1% of income, like there's a lot of travel influencers that are just rich people. They're just straight up rich people. And that's why they're at all these places, and that's why they're at all these restaurants, and that's why they're at all these hotels. It turns out they were doing that stuff before. They just didn't show anyone, or they would send a Christmas card once a year with a picture of being in Switzerland or something like that. But now the algorithm pushes all that stuff to the front, and it makes it look like everybody's like hanging out in the spa in Switzerland. Like not many people are doing that. That being said, it's never been easier to go and travel, and I honestly think that traveling now effectively is an act of protest against the sort of closing off hyper-nationalism that we're seeing, not just in America and my country, but all over the world. People are getting closed off. They're separating themselves from economic alliances. They're making people worried that the people coming from the other border are going to mess up your country, so don't travel over to there. It's dangerous. I really think are there problems? Can you run into problems traveling? Sure. I think you're more likely to get hit by a car crossing the street than you are to get attacked in a foreign country when you go travel. It's just not as dangerous or not as crazy as people make it out to be. And I have determined that people say, oh, are you worried about going to China? Are you worried that if you go to Taiwan and then into China, you're going to get blocked? And it's like, I kind of feel like it's my job to call the bluff. I have a passport. You say I can go. The law says I can go. I'm going to go until you block me from going. So, I think that keeping the camera rolling outside the country and showing all the stuff is really important. That being said, I'm very lucky and very privileged now, thanks to the support for you guys, that I can go back and forth whenever I want. Don't feel like you can't take part in this whole world if you don't have the money or the time to travel back and forth to Asia every year and go to the tea mountains. It's really a once in a lifetime sort of thing. And eventually I will come out with some sort of tea tour. So if you guys want to do tea tours, you can go to jessie'steatours.com. Right now it's just a sign up page. You can give me your email, and if I ever do tea tours, I will email that email list first. But it's not impossible to get to those mountains, but definitely don't feel like you need to be buying your tea on the mountain in order for it to be good. You can also get it from me. I take it from the mountain and send it to you guys. So thanks so much. I'm gonna get going. Got a lot of questions over here. People say, holy shit, I really want to do that. One day, come to the tea mountains. We'll drink tea on the tea mountains. It's every bit as chill as you think it is. The rural China, they just slow down. Urban China, very fast paced. I live in mega cities. I live in Los Angeles. Chinese cities are even faster paced than here. Rural China, very chill. No one's in a rush. It's great. I love it. Anyway, see you guys around. Merry Christmas to our Christian friends out there. Happy last night of Hanukkah to any other fellow Jewish friends out there. Hope you have a great holiday season. Hope you guys get to see your family. Hope everybody's healthy. Hope you get have a good base with a little bit of a time off to open into 2026 feeling refreshed, focused. And I just hope 2026 is one of those years you look back at the end of 26 and you're like, that was a great year. 25 was a little bit more confusing for me because of the trade war and all the crisis we had to go through. And in the U.S., my own country, we're in a little bit of a political crisis right now. So it was not the easiest year. But I think that, we can only do what we can do. And I'm excited to try to continue to share, keep going on my tea journey this next year and help you guys along with your tea journey in this coming year. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and I will see you around. I might, maybe in January. I don't think I'm going to have another chance to live stream before the end of the year. So enjoy, guys. See you in 2026. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.